Inside your water heater, right now, there is a metal rod slowly dissolving. That rod is supposed to dissolve. It is dissolving so your tank does not. The rod is called a sacrificial anode, and it is the single most important maintenance component in your entire water heating system. It is also the component that your plumber has never once mentioned in any service call, annual checkup, or maintenance visit, not because he forgot, not because it is complicated. Because the moment he explains what it is and what replacing it does, the $1,200 water heater replacement he was going to quote you in 3 years becomes a $15 maintenance item you handle yourself every 5 years. That is not a conversation that ends with a signed invoice. So the conversation never happens. What happens instead is your anode depletes, your tank begins corroding from the inside, and somewhere between year 8 and year 12, your water heater fails in a way that looks like normal appliance aging and costs you $800 to $1,500 to resolve. The failure is not bad luck. It is not the natural lifespan of the equipment. It is the predictable outcome of a maintenance item that was never performed because the person qualified to recommend it had a financial incentive not to. I am Dr. Cole Ward, 38 years as a licensed structural engineer. Mechanical systems assessment was a consistent component of residential property review throughout my career. Water heaters are among the most neglected and most predictably replaceable appliances in the residential inventory, and they are predictably replaceable for a reason that has nothing to do with the fundamental design of the equipment and everything to do with a single maintenance item that costs $15 and takes 20 minutes to address. Every major water heater manufacturer, Rheem, A.O. Smith, Bradford White, specifies anode rod inspection and replacement in their technical service manuals. The specification is not obscure. It is in the document that came in the box when your water heater was installed in the section titled Maintenance on the page that nobody reads because nobody told them it mattered. The Department of Energy published findings in 1992 documenting that regular anode rod replacement extended water heater service life by 8 to 12 years beyond the baseline 8 to 12 year lifespan of an unmaintained unit. A water heater maintained with regular anode replacement routinely reaches 20 years of service life. An unmaintained water heater fails at 8 to 12 years on schedule as the replacement market requires. The electrochemistry behind the sacrificial anode is worth understanding because it explains why the system works and why neglecting it produces the specific failure pattern that it does. Steel, which is what your water heater tank is made of, corrodes when it is in contact with water and oxygen through a process called electrochemical oxidation. Iron atoms at the steel surface lose electrons to dissolved oxygen in the water, forming iron oxide, rust. Left unprotected, a steel tank in constant contact with hot water would corrode through in a matter of years. The solution that the water heater industry arrived at in the 1930s is a technique called cathodic protection, and it works by introducing a second metal into the system that is more electrochemically active than steel, meaning it gives up electrons to dissolved oxygen more readily than the steel does. When that second metal is present, the electrochemical oxidation reaction preferentially attacks the more active metal rather than the steel. The steel is protected. The more active metal corrodes in its place. That is the sacrificial anode. It is a rod of magnesium, aluminum, or zinc metals that are more electrochemically active than the iron in your tank, suspended in the center of the water column inside the tank, connected to the steel shell by a threaded fitting at the top. As long as the anode material is present, the electrochemical protection of the tank continues. When the anode material is fully depleted, the protection ends and the tank begins corroding at the rate it would have corroded without any protection from the day it was installed. The Journal of the Electrochemical Society published findings in 1991 on galvanic corrosion protection in steel water storage tanks that quantified this protection mechanism. Tanks with maintained anodes showed interior corrosion rates below measurable thresholds across the testing period. Tanks with depleted anodes showed corrosion initiation within 6 to 18 months of anode exhaustion, with measurable wall thinning documented within 3 years of unprotected operation. The Corrosion Engineering Journal published a 2003 study on sacrificial anode performance in residential hot water systems that documented anode depletion rates across a range of water chemistry conditions. In soft water with low mineral content, a standard magnesium anode lasted 4 to 7 years. In hard water with high mineral and dissolved oxygen content, depletion occurred in 2 to 4 years. The National Association of Home Builders published a 2007 water heater life expectancy study that showed the median replacement age of residential water heaters in the United States was 11.2 years, while the design service life of the equipment, assuming maintained cathodic protection, was 20 years or greater. The gap between 11.2 years and 20 years is the anode rod. It is also, at a national scale, tens of millions of premature replacements, generating billions of dollars in installation revenue that would not exist if every homeowner knew that a $15 rod in 20 minutes of their time every 5 years was the difference between those two numbers. The water chemistry in your home determines how quickly your anode depletes, and understanding this helps you set the right inspection interval. Magnesium anodes, which are the most common type installed from the factory, are the most electrochemically active and provide the strongest protection, but deplete the fastest in hard water conditions. If your municipality has hard water, meaning high concentrations of dissolved calcium and magnesium, your anode may exhaust in 3 years rather than 5. The Water Quality Association documented in 2006 that water hardness above 11 grains per gallon, which describes water conditions in large portions of the American Midwest and Southwest, accelerated magnesium anode depletion by 40 to 60% compared to soft water conditions. If you are in a hard water area and have never replaced your anode, there is a reasonable probability that your tank has been operating without cathodic protection for longer than you realize. Aluminum anodes deplete more slowly than magnesium in hard water conditions and are frequently recommended as replacements in those regions. Zinc-aluminum combination anodes are used in applications where water has high sulfur content. The sulfur reacts with magnesium anodes to produce a hydrogen sulfide odor in the hot water, colloquially described as a rotten egg smell. If your hot water has ever had an odor, a zinc-aluminum anode replacement addresses both the smell and the protection simultaneously. Your anode rod is accessed through a hex fitting on the top of your water heater. On some units, the fitting is exposed and immediately visible. On others, it is under the sheet metal jacket and requires removing an access panel or the jacket itself. A small number of units have the anode integrated into the hot water outlet fitting rather than as a standalone rod. These are identifiable by a hex recess in the center of the outlet fitting. The fitting accepts a 1 1/16 inch socket, which is not a common size in standard socket sets and may require a specific purchase. A 6-point socket of that size costs $8 to $15 at any hardware store. You will also need a breaker bar or a long-handled ratchet because the anode fitting is typically installed with significant torque and may be further seized by mineral deposits if it has not been removed in several years. Before any inspection or replacement, turn off the power supply to the water heater, the circuit breaker for an electric unit, the gas valve to the pilot position for a gas unit. Connect a garden hose to the drain valve at the bottom of the tank and open it to relieve pressure, then close it. You do not need to drain the tank fully. Turn off the cold water supply. Place a socket on the anode fitting and apply torque counterclockwise. If the fitting is seized, penetrating oil applied to the threads and allowed to work for 30 minutes will usually free it. Remove the old anode and inspect it. A healthy anode has material remaining. The core wire may be partially visible, but the magnesium or aluminum coating should still be present around at least 50% of the rod length. An anode that needs replacement shows the bare steel core wire with minimal coating material remaining, heavy calcium scale deposits encrusting the surface, or a rod that has been reduced to less than half its original diameter. If the core wire is exposed and the coating is substantially gone, the anode has been depleted and your tank has been operating without cathodic protection. Install the new anode by wrapping the threads with 2 to 3 layers of plumber's tape, threading it in by hand until snug, and tightening with the socket to approximately 40 to 50 foot-pounds of torque, firm but not extreme. Restore the cold water supply, allow the tank to refill, restore power, and the replacement is complete. Total time from start to finish for an inexperienced homeowner on a cooperative fitting is 15 to 25 minutes. On a seized fitting with penetrating oil wait time, allow an hour. The inspection interval I recommend based on the engineering documentation is every 3 to 5 years, with the shorter interval applying to hard water conditions and the longer to soft water. Mark the date of your inspection on a piece of tape attached to the tank. The anode you find on that inspection may or may not need replacement depending on its condition. If it has significant material remaining, reinstall it and check again in 2 years. If it is substantially depleted, replace it. The $15 replacement anode is available at plumbing supply stores, hardware stores, and online in magnesium, aluminum, and zinc aluminum configurations. Specify your tank manufacturer and model when purchasing to confirm the correct thread pattern and length, or bring the old anode to confirm physical compatibility. The plumber who comes to your home for an annual water heater service call, a service that typically costs $75 to $150, will drain a few gallons from the tank to clear sediment, check the pressure relief valve, and verify that the unit is operating. He will not remove the anode rod and inspect it. Doing so would add 5 minutes to his service call and create the conversation about anode replacement that ends with a $15 part rather than a $1,200 replacement in 3 to 5 years. He may tell you, if you ask directly about the anode, that your unit is fine and does not require that level of service. He may tell you that anode inspection requires draining the tank and is more involved than a standard maintenance call. Neither statement is accurate. Anode inspection requires removing a hex fitting. It does not require draining the tank. It does not require specialized equipment beyond a socket. It does require that the person performing the service call not be financially dependent on the appliance failing on schedule. I am not suggesting that every plumber in the country is running a coordinated suppression of anode rod knowledge. I am observing that the absence of anode maintenance from every consumer-facing water heater guidance document, every plumber service checklist, and every homeowner orientation pamphlet produced by an industry that profits from water heater replacement is not an accident of omission. The information exists. It is in the manufacturer's manuals. It is in the DOE documentation. It is in the electrochemistry literature going back to the 1930s. The sacrificial anode was patented as a water heater protection system in 1936. Your water heater has had one since the day it was manufactured. In the 88 years since that patent was filed, the mainstream plumbing service industry has not found a way to make anode maintenance a standard consumer recommendation. The math on why that is the case is not complicated. The water heater sitting in your utility room right now contains a rod that is either protecting your tank or has already been depleted and is no longer doing so. You now know how to find out which one is true, and you know what to do about it. Check the anode, replace it if it needs replacing. Tell your water heater it has another decade. Share this with someone who just got a water heater replacement quote. Subscribe if you want to know what other $15 maintenance item is sitting inside a 4-figure appliance failure that nobody in the service industry has any financial reason to